You didn't wake up to chaos. You woke up to stillness, a strange kind of silence that wrapped around your thoughts like mist. Not heavy, but different. Like something had stepped out of place in your inner world, yet everything around you still looked the same. The sky didn't crack open. The earth didn't tremble. But inside, something subtle and irreversible began. Maybe you couldn't name it. Maybe all you felt was the hesitation before standing, the pause before speaking, the question behind every habit. Does this still belong to me? You weren't broken. You weren't lost. You were just sensing what your nervous system had been whispering for months, that something about the old rhythm had gone quiet. Not because you failed, but because you no longer agreed. This wasn't burnout. This wasn't depression. This was the echo of your past self fading from your field. And what you called fatigue was actually a fracture in your resonance. A deep inner recalibration, not towards what's next, but away from what's false. This is the part no one talks about. The moment between versions. The space where you haven't stepped into the new, but you've already stopped believing in the old. You're still smiling, still working, still doing what's expected. But the soul inside those motions has shifted, and you can feel it. Not because something broke, but because something real is starting to breathe underneath all the performance. At first, it doesn't feel spiritual. It feels like static in your mind, like a disconnect from your own enthusiasm, like forgetting why you ever cared about things that used to light you up. You find yourself pulling away, not in defiance, but in quiet refusal. You can't force interest. You can't fake momentum. The gears that once kept you in motion no longer respond to pressure. You keep asking, what's wrong with me? But your body already knows the answer. Nothing is wrong. Everything is realigning. You're no longer compatible with the frequency that once shaped your decisions. The goals you set from survival, the routines built on proving your worth, the identities crafted for safety, all of it begins to dissolve. And you can feel the unraveling everywhere. The to-do list becomes irrelevant. The deadlines feel meaningless. Even conversations feel ghost-like, as if you're speaking from behind glass. You nod, you participate, but the deeper part of you is gone. Not absent, just not available for that reality anymore. And that's exactly what's happening. The field you once moved through, the energetic grid of effort, performance, urgency, self-minimization, is collapsing. Not globally, not politically, internally, in you. And while the world may still appear intact, your resonance is no longer stabilized by it. You're not tired, you're untethered, you're not behind, you're in between a life built by reaction and a self ready to create from truth. The framework is fading, and what's left is the space, vast, silent, disorienting, that always comes before emergence. This is the space most people run from, the in-between, the undefined, the nothingness. Because in a world obsessed with movement, stillness feels like failure. In a culture built on certainty, mystery feels like danger. And when your identity has always been tied to who you are in relation to others, your productivity, your opinions, your roles, then the absence of those things can feel like death. But it's not death. It's the quiet return. You're not losing yourself. You're losing the noise that once defined you. You're not dissolving. You're becoming visible to yourself for the first time. And it's strange, isn't it? How much energy you spent being someone, and now doing nothing. You feel more real than you ever did in the performance. But it's also terrifying, because you don't yet know how to exist without a costume, without the script, without the mask that kept you loved and safe and accepted. And even as your soul exhales in relief, your nervous system trembles in withdrawal. This is what it means to decondition. Not to change overnight, not to heal in a linear timeline, but to sit in the empty room where your old self used to live and not redecorate too fast. To wait, to feel the ache of emptiness without rushing to fill it with distraction. Because if you can stay there, just long enough, something sacred happens. Your true signal begins to rise. Not the rehearsed one, not the one built on spiritual language or curated transformation, but the raw frequency that existed before you were programmed to survive. The version of you that isn't interested in being impressive, only in being real. And that's what's being called forward now. The question is, can you stand in the undefined long enough for the real you to surface? Or will you reach for an identity just because silence makes you uncomfortable? One of the greatest deceptions in this current matrix is the idolization of functioning. How well are you adapting? How productive are you? How consistently can you perform your role, regardless of how you feel inside? And if you can keep up, you're called strong. If you can show up with a smile while everything inside you is unraveling, you're praised. If you keep moving, even when your spirit begs you to stop, you're considered successful. But functioning isn't the same as living. And many who seem to be doing well are actually just dissociating skillfully. You may have been taught that discomfort means something's wrong, that confusion is a problem to be fixed, that slowing down is laziness, and that questioning everything is a sign of crisis. But in truth, these are the signs of awakening, the symptoms of unplugging, the gentle collapse of the false grid. What you're experiencing, this fatigue, this withdrawal, this inability to care about the things you used to, it's not weakness. It's clarity. You're no longer able to override your truth for the sake of appearances. You're no longer capable of pretending that what drains you is acceptable. And yes, that comes with grief. The grief of everything you betrayed yourself to maintain. The grief of realizing how many parts of your life were built on compliance, not coherence. This is the shadow of awakening. Not just remembering who you are, but facing everything you agreed to be in order to survive. You may feel lost now, but what you're actually experiencing is a refusal to get lost again in someone else's rhythm. So don't rush to rebuild. Don't force your system to function according to the metrics of a collapsing world. Don't seek comfort in the illusion that kept you asleep. Instead, pause. Let the structure dissolve. Let the version of you that was never meant to last fall. Because what will remain is truth. And that truth may be quiet. It may not have the answers, but it will have resonance. And resonance will always guide you deeper than any rulebook ever could. Now that the collapse has begun, not of the world, but of the program that trained you to betray your resonance, a deeper invitation arises. This isn't about rebuilding a better version of your old self. It's about remembering a version of you that never agreed to the distortion in the first place. The version of you that existed before you learned to perform peace while holding chaos. Before you wore ambition like armor. Before your worth was measured by how little rest you needed to prove you were strong. You see, the system doesn't just ask for your time. It asks for your frequency. It trains you to leak your life force into illusions, into performances, into avatars that are always just one step removed from your real signal. But that signal, your original frequency, never left. It was simply layered over, hidden beneath patterns, identities, agreements you made just to feel safe. And now, that original frequency is humming again. Not loudly, not dramatically, but unmistakably. You feel it in the moments you stop scrolling. In the quiet after the urge to fix yourself fades. In the breath you take that doesn't come from anxiety, but from presence. This frequency doesn't demand anything from you. It doesn't shout. It doesn't hustle. It whispers. It softens. It stays. And when you begin to live from that resonance, not just touch it in meditation or brief inspiration, but embody it in your choices, your boundaries, your pace, everything begins to change. Not instantly, not without resistance, but undeniably. Because the field around you begins to respond not to your role, but to your realness. People shift, timelines shift, even the way your body processes energy begins to reorganize. But here's the challenge. The old field won't applaud your return. It will try to pull you back into character. It will tell you you're selfish for choosing rest, that you're failing because you no longer chase, that you're lost because you refuse to numb yourself with noise. Don't believe it. What you're doing isn't withdrawal, it's reclamation. You're not stepping away from life. You're stepping out of distortion. You're not losing momentum. You're losing misalignment. And the only compass you need now is resonance. If it contracts your energy, it's not for you. If it dilutes your truth, it's not yours to carry. If it demands you abandon your inner signal to be accepted, it's not love. It's manipulation. This is the return, not to who you were, but to who you've always been beneath the conditioning. A self that doesn't need fixing, a rhythm that doesn't need validation, a frequency that doesn't need to fight to be heard. Integration is not the fireworks. It's not the epiphany or the breakthrough moment that turns everything cinematic. It's the soft, invisible alignment that happens when you finally stop looking outside yourself for permission to exist. It's the quiet calibration that begins when you choose to trust the signal rather than chase the narrative. In this phase, you don't become a new person. You stop pretending to be who you never were. You start to notice the conversations you no longer entertain, the obligations you no longer perform, the stories you stop repeating just to feel safe. You begin to recognize the difference between the real you, the you that breathes truth into a room without saying a word, and the mask that once helped you survive systems of performance, urgency, and projection. Integration is not a finish line, it's a re entry into your body, into your field, into a way of being that doesn't fracture you just to be functional. It doesn't seek a role to be loved, it becomes love by existing as wholeness. In this stage, your nervous system stops flinching at stillness. Your breath lengthens. You no longer confuse numbness with peace, nor silence with absence. Instead, silence becomes the sacred container where your truth echoes fully for the first time. You may not have clarity yet. That's fine. You may not feel motivated. That's expected. Because clarity doesn't arrive to the mind first, it reverberates in the body. And motivation doesn't precede embodiment, it follows resonance. You are not falling behind. You're synchronizing with a timeline that isn't based on performance but on presence. And the more you live from this state, the more real you feel, even if the world hasn't caught up to your transformation. So you move differently now. You say less, but it lands deeper. You don't rush to explain your frequency to people who are still addicted to noise. You conserve your energy not out of fear, but out of respect. You don't force your way into timelines that can't hold your truth. You wait, not in passivity, but in power, until what aligns with your real signal shows up. And it will. Because that's what resonance does. It organizes the field around your truth. This final part isn't just about holding a new frequency. It's about building a life that honors it. A life that doesn't require you to betray your knowing just to be understood. A life where presence is more valuable than productivity. A life that doesn't need performance to feel sacred. You're not collapsing. You're reforming. Slowly, gently, authentically. Let the old version of you grieve and go. Let the field around you reorganize. Let your body land. Because the more you return to your resonance, the more reality reshapes itself to meet you there. And if this moment felt like it found you at exactly the right time, it did. If you feel the shift, speak it. Not just in the comments, in your breath, in your pace, in your decisions. You don't need to explain your transformation. You just need to live it. Now and always, return to the signal. The world is changing, but your truth never left. If you're ready to hold this frequency, not just today, but every day forward, subscribe, not to a channel, but to your real self. And if you feel called to share, let us know in the comments. What's the old signal you're finally letting go of? What new rhythm are you ready to embody? Your voice strengthens the grid for all of us.